free. And we are coming to you from the beautiful city of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Uh, Happy to be here. Happy Monday. I'm going to wait a few minutes or a few seconds here a little bit, but I wanted to speak a little bit about, the Black experience, coming to Brazil as a brown person, Black person, and what that's like, you know, and what your experience could be here. So let's wait a little bit. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend, getting ready to go into Christmas season. I hope everybody is able to celebrate the way that they want to. I know right now things are quite different for people in the States with a lot of the financial situations people are going through right now and the shifts and everything. But hopefully everybody's able to at least celebrate the way they want to with their loved ones, because that's really the important part, having that time off to be with your folks. But yeah, let's talk about it a little bit. I'm on my walk, I barely have time to make videos, but it's easiest when I'm on my walks in the morning and headed out to run errands and things like that. So for those of you who don't know, Brazil is considered to be the country with the most, brown, Black. Here they call us, if you're mixed and you have like maybe some other stuff like indigenous blood or things like that, they'll call you pardo, Pardo. But then you have just straight Black folk out here, and dark skin, the typical hair, the hair textures that darker skinned people would have, which I know that's a range, but just to say, and all of us, darker hued, melanated folks. Brazil has the second largest population in the world outside of the country of Nigeria, okay? So in other words, there are no other countries in Africa, for instance, that has as many melanated folks as Brazil has outside of Nigeria, okay? So that's a lot. People ask what the reason for that is. For those of you who didn't know, Brazil was the country that had supposedly implemented chattel slavery earliest in the world, in this part of the world, and ended it the latest. So it ended in 1888, which was way beyond any other countries in the region. And so because of that, there were so many folks here that had come over, supposedly from Africa, and there's just a lot of Black folk out here, and they're very, very much, because of, I think, how late it was when they kind of abolished slavery, and also because of just the way slavery was abolished here in Brazil. It's a kind of a different experience for Black folk in general, for melanated people. So there's a lot of us out here everywhere you go, even in a city as big as Sao Paulo. Even though they have pushed melanated folks out to the periphery of the city, so they don't necessarily live and can't necessarily afford to live within the confines of the actual city of Sao Paulo, most of them are at least living kind of totally surrounding the actual city, whereas they used to be living within the city center and working and being basically labored out here, when they were big on the coffee thing, growing coffee and all of that, when it was a big agricultural hub here in Sao Paulo. So now, but the real Black hub where you're going to find, you feel like you're in Atlanta or something like that, is when you go up to Bahia, Salvador da Bahia. I have lived in Salvador in the past. I've lived in Itacaré, which is a smaller town region, kind of out there in nature in Bahia. And Bahia is very melanated, okay? And the culture of the people, all of the influences of Africa, of indigenous culture, and just all of the cultures are all blended up there. But at the end of the day, you still feel like you are in somewhere like Atlanta, basically DC. So real chocolate city vibes. And so the experience that you have is different here in Brazil, depending upon where you are, right? And that's the same thing for, I'd say, anywhere in America too. But it just depends on where you are. Like, for instance, here in Sao Paulo, it presents very much like mixed, very kind of Euro looking and very international, right? So when you come to Sao Paulo, a lot of people will be thinking it's like just this white Brazilian city. And we are in the south. And so when you go south of Sao Paulo, it does start to get very, very pale. But Sao Paulo actually is the state, because it's a state and a city, with the largest amount of melanated folks, per capita. So there's a lot of us out here. Again, it's just about where they're located in the region, and a lot of them are not here living and established, hanging out and working in the city center, but a lot of them live outside of the city, and that just has to do with the way that they gentrified them. In terms of the racism and whether, that kind of colonial shadow stain is still upon Brazil, I would say, absolutely yes. But it doesn't feel the same as in America, and it doesn't present the same. So, and to understand why it's so different here in terms of race relations and the feel of, coming here and being a black person, is because Brazil is understood that if you have money, if you have means of any sort, then it's in a certain type of way, it whitens you. Brancamento. And that was a whole movement. So money whitens you now. In the past, so Brazil also had a movement where they called it brancamento, and it was about the whitening of the population through mixed breeding. And so it was a lot of them promoting racial, mixing, so that they would have this, what you see today, which is a very, not only just, regular melanated folks, but also very, very mixed melanated folks that are indigenous. They're white. I mean, what they really wanted was you to get as much European blood in you, and they felt that that was something that would elevate the culture, right? And elevate the actual country and the success of the country. And so they have a real weird history. What Brazil has done, and this again has to do with how they were free, how they freed and got out of colonial rule and freed themselves from slavery and all that, because of the way all of that went down out here, and that's a long ass story. Brazilians, they have a way of dealing with things kind of in an undercover way. So as opposed to direct racial, strife and issues like what we see in the United States, what we'll see here is just an incredible, I don't want to say mismanagement, but an incredible discrepancy about, where wealth lies. And so wealth in this country, like in America, you'll meet plenty of us that's got it going on, right? And we might have it going on, well, I don't know about now because things are changing, but we might be wealthy and have, things from having businesses. We might have had, a really good job that allowed us to invest over the years. But we had opportunities, you know what I'm saying? We've always had opportunities, at least since they really started allowing black folk to mingle, to actually get the jobs and actually get into spaces where they could have that level of success. And so out here, they took all of the resources, and again, all of the resources that they stole, from raping indigenous land, all of the resources that they, came over here and pillaged from basically the earth itself, and being able to come over here and then also rely on the resources of humans to do work so that they can enrich themselves, these Europeans. They then took all of that and lumped it and made sure that their much smaller population were the ones that had all of that wealth. And Brazil is very wealthy. Okay, and so what you see is that didn't get spread around at all. And they haven't had a major kind of like civil rights movement or anything to like really help to kind of shake things up and balance things. They have different movements. You definitely have a big black pride movement and stuff like that out here. But they're really, it feels like really behind. You know what I'm saying? Really behind where America is in regards to access, and so they are fighting and they are really trying hard to get more access for the melanated folks here. But it has just been a very slow process because they have really kind of just done a number on them by institutionalizing racism in a way where it's like they just do not have access, period. To wealth, to abundance, to prosperity. They're relegated to certain jobs. They're relegated to being servants and nannies to white families and all of these different low level things that doesn't allow them to really climb out of the poverty. So when you see all these favelas on social media and stuff, yeah, Brazil has a lot of favelas and they're very much highly melanated populations. And that's because their opportunities have been totally blocked. Okay, their opportunities to go to school, to get education, any to do meaningful things has been blocked. Now that doesn't mean you have wealthy and up and coming people, but I will say that the first time I lived in Brazil 20 something years ago, you really didn't see that. So you're seeing more and more of it in time. It doesn't look anything like what the United States looks like, but it's coming slowly, right? So when you're here, you might not experience direct mistreatment because of your skin. I would say up north, where it's very, very black, and there's just a few white folk, that used to be running things. You might see some things that would be very disturbing for you, particularly around how they treat the local people, how they treat black Brazilians. Like for instance, if I've seen white employers being very abusive to black employees up in Salvador in the past. But down here where we are, these are the urban people. They pride themselves in being very, very woke, down here, and they don't want to look like they're bad people. So the way that they have dealt with the racial inequities is by, blocking and making it very hard for melanated people to achieve here, which is really heavy, almost worse than the U.S. in a way. And a lot of it again has to do with the means and the way that colonialism and slavery wrapped up here, which was not through revolt like it was in the rest of Latin America, even though all of these Latin countries in South America and stuff did kind of get themselves freed around the same time in the earlier 1800s. But because, again, Brazil did not, 1888 is when they abolished slavery, so they're on some other shit, right? But in terms of the colonial background, they all kind of decolonized and ran Europe out of here around the early, teens, 20s, 1820s and stuff. But the Spanish-speaking countries did it through revolt, through the Bolivarian revolts and all of that. So they fought for theirs, okay? And they had more institutions, they had more universities and different institutions, more access to the crown, more access to Europe, the Spanish speakers. So they were getting all of this high leftist intellectual, programming in them that was letting them know that they needed to fight for their freedom and not be up under Spain. Whereas Portugal, they went a different route. Because a lot of the Portuguese rulership actually lived in Brazil. And so it was just a different thing, and it has impacted this society all the way up till now. But basically, yeah, I mean, you won't necessarily be called a nigga or nothing like that. You won't necessarily go through anything outright, but you will notice that people kind of look at you crazy if you're in certain spaces sometimes. They're very quiet about things here. They will give you a weird energy. They'll look at you strange until at least they find out that you're American or that you're foreign, because for them now the way it works is it's money, capacity, financial capacity that kind of makes you acceptable in society. Now, does that mean that they hate everything black? No. They adore the Afro-Brazilian culture. So even the European ones and the white, everyone adores that culture. It's like really esteemed here, but that doesn't mean that there's equity and that, the melanated folk have the same opportunities to kind of like do for self, come out of poverty, move into these city centers and really, really, really do well in their lives. Unless, for instance, they are like some kind of world acclaimed musician. So there are a lot of really amazing musicians, black musicians here in Brazil, and so they get a lot more opportunities, obviously, and will have wealth, certain levels of wealth you won't see that often. You'll also see a lot of obviously soccer players. They're really into sports here, and particularly soccer, which they call football. And for sure, those players are making more money than your average melanated Brazilian, right? So those are kind of the two arenas where you'll see, okay, yeah, now you have some real wealth there, but still compared to the amount of, wealth that Brazil holds and how it's in the hands and the rulership of, these kind of Portuguese Brazilians. It is a very uneven and poorly distributed situation, okay? So that is really the way I would say that to someone if they ask me the experience of being black here, is that it is a very, very, very lovely, easy flow. You mostly will get treated pretty well. I'm not saying there's not parts of this country that you go and places that you might go where you might actually actively be mistreated. But as a foreign black person, as someone from outside that they deem as more worthy of good treatment because we're here spending our money, they're going to deal with you a little bit differently. They don't kiss foreigners' asses here. It's not that kind of party. It's not like that. But they will respect you a little bit more, whereas, they're really going to look at you crazy if you're a Brazilian and you're moving around in certain spaces they don't think, you should be able to afford or you should be able to be in, right? And so that is, kind of how that works. I would say, in terms of quality of life and everything, it's good. It's really, really good here, especially here in Sao Paulo because of how much access we have to everything in the global community and, just the amount of fun. It's extremely fun, exciting city. There's just many levels to things that you can get into. It's very much like a New York City that's smoother with nicer people, maybe more gentle people. Not that I don't love New Yorkers. I've lived in New York, and I mean, New Yorkers have their own special, once you get in with them, it's a very powerful, interesting thing, right? But, not to say all New Yorkers are assholes, but just saying here, people, they deal with more respect. It's a more humane culture in general. So, you end up having a really nice quality of life overall, especially if you can afford to live here. Brazil is less expensive, I would say, than like living in the U.S., but it just depends on your lifestyle. Because I live here in Sao Paulo, it's the most expensive city, or one of them in the country. It's not the capital, but it's one of the biggest cities in the world. And the lifestyle is a huge range of expense. And so it just depends on you. But it is not, I wouldn't say like a cheap place to live, not here. Now, if you go up north a little bit or to some of these other regions of Brazil and just, and live in those places, yeah, you're going to have a much reduced lifestyle than you would here. But yeah, overall, not the cheapest place, but your quality of life is really good, even as a black person, as long as you understand how it works. And it can be really sad because sometimes you're like living your best life and you're feeling so good in Brazil, and so many Americans are out here doing that. There's a lot of us out here. Everyone just adores this country. But then you talk to Brazilians and local folks, and most of them love and adore their country. But for some of them who are a little bit more maybe politically charged, or still carrying a lot of bitterness about how they've been treated over centuries, you will see, you'll talk to them, and it makes you feel bad because it's like their experience is so oppressive compared to your ability to create your life here, right? So there isn't a level of oppression that a lot of them feel. And so it's good and important to make sure you connect with the local folks and not just stay in your own little Americanized community, so that you can get a feel of what they're experiencing. And so you don't take it for granted just because you can come out here and you're whitened because you maybe have a little bit of some money. And most of us are not rich that's living out here by any means, but we are living abroad. There's certain amounts of funds that need to be coming in to maintain that lifestyle. You can't work for you can't go up the street and go get a job. So, that indicates there's some amount of capacity there financially, right? And so that is the reality is that, you don't want to take that for granted. It's a blessing to be able to come somewhere and be treated better than you would like in your home country, which is the case here. But then you also need to understand some of the underpining and some of the things that are going on underneath the surface. That's why it's important, I think, if you move to another country, that you also study the history, especially if it's a country that has a background like this one does, of, colonialism and slavery, that you study and that you understand, study to understand, the realities of the people. So, and that's about it. Does anyone have any questions? You can ask me. Feel free to write me down below if you do. Oh, and you guys throw a like up for me. Just throw a like on the video, or even subscribe if you want more of this kind of conversation. I'm going to be getting into more history, regional, geopolitics stuff, which I'm really interested in and love to talk about on this channel, because I think it's really important right now, especially the geopolitics portion, because as y'all know, they're trying to implement the Monroe Doctrine Part 2, so 2.0, right now under the guise of what they call the National Security Agency, which is a newly published document by, the feds, Trump and them. And they have a lot of plans for the globe in terms of how they interact with nations globally. But in particular, they have certain plans in place for how they want to interact and engage with Latin America. And it explains a lot of what's going on in Venezuela right now. So I think it's important that we educate ourselves on, geopolitics. That's why I want to talk about like the most basic travel related stuff on this channel, but it just feels a little silly, with so much going on. I think we need to also, in our planning and wanting to leave the country and move abroad and do all these different things, that we're considering where we're going and the stability of that place, especially with, all of these new campaigns that the U.S. government is launching as they go around the world bullying nations, which is what they're doing right now, trying to bully everyone, whether it's economically or by show of military force, which is what they're doing in Venezuela right now. The United States government is the big bully on campus, and they're doing it. They're going around the globe, and now, like I said, they have written and published the National Security Strategy 2025, and it gives you a good understanding and peer into, what's going to be happening, particularly in these countries like, resource-rich nations in the Caribbean and in Central and South America, and what their plans are. For instance, them marauding and pirating down in the Caribbean right now, stealing oil from Venezuela, and all of the horrific stuff that they're doing right now. So, it's really sad. I mean, I'm American. I would love to be proud of where I was from, but there's no way in hell, understanding the background and the history and seeing what that government is doing on a global scale to basically destroy the lives of people in so many different places, and including the U.S. itself, okay? Because people's lives are not what they have bought into, and what they thought it would be as an American. A lot of people are waking up right now and realizing they're being poisoned by the food. They're being poisoned with the frequencies and the EMFs. They're being poisoned mentally through the social media and all of the programming. It's like a lot of toxic stuff going on. And Americans are starting to wake up to it, and it's really amazing. But it's been a long time, because the programming, they ran it real thick on us. It's kind of like China. Like, they have been going hard with the mental warfare, the psychological warfare, and for a long time, and to the point where it has spilled over and is a global phenomenon, where you'll go to other countries and people have been, programmed the same way to look at America as some, country to uphold, and as some great nation, and that it is not. So, we just have to be realistic. And so, but yeah, for those of you who just jumped on, earlier, I was just talking about the experience of being, melanated here in Brazil, for an example. And, it's different everywhere you go. I mean, I think Brazil's a great place to come as long as you have some perspective on the history and also the way that, the local folks might experience life here as compared to your experience as a foreigner. As long as you educate yourself on that, I think this is a great place for us to come. Also, there are other really good places. A lot of us are looking in the direction of Africa, particularly South Africa, Kenya, and I guess you would say Ghana right now. I've lived in West Africa. I've lived in Ghana. It was many years ago, so it's hard for me to speak on it, but I do. I also have lived in Senegal, and West Africa is changing a lot. But I would say, a lot of us are looking in those directions and looking to go places where we feel like we can be okay as melanated people and not have to be shunned or treated any different or shat upon just for our skin of all things, and prejudice against and all of that. So a lot of us are looking for places we can go to have a good life. And that's why I did this video, because I do think Brazil is a great option right now. My family and I certainly have a great quality of life here, way better than we did in the U.S. and way better than we did in the Caribbean, because that's mostly where we've been living for the last, I don't know, 10 years, mostly between there and obviously here, because I think we've spent maybe about 3 of the last 10 years in Brazil. So, I do think that it's something to consider for those of you who are considering coming in this direction, or, at least doing a scouting. I'm going to put some links below. I definitely help with tours, so I provide tours and scouting tours, and also consultations and coaching to help people kind of get their plans in order, and just to, offer that real kind of concierge for people who are looking to, start over and just need their hands held in that process, because it's not easy, and I've been doing it for a long time, so it's more natural for me. I've been traveling, moving abroad, moving to different countries with my kids for a long time. But yeah, if you're looking for that kind of support, I will definitely drop my links below, the consultations, all the different things. And yeah, we are going to get it going. I'm going to finally be putting my stand store back up. So that'll be an easier gateway for people to access me and to schedule consultations and coaching and services, and also to purchase some of the digital guides and things that we offer. So yeah, we are excited. Let me see, there's a message here. Let me see. Oh yeah, okay, troll. Go back to Africa. Well, I don't need to go anywhere, honey. I'm in a wonderful place. Um, Very happily so. But yeah, and actually, my ancestors are indigenous to the United States. They're not. We didn't come from Africa, so you probably should go back to the caves if that's where you're from, because that's where a lot of the Europeans did actually come from. So yeah. So anyway, y'all, we are just giving thanks. Hit me up again. Oh, and then I'm also gonna post my readiness like little quiz that I created for you guys, so that you can get a sense of whether your family, where your family is in the spectrum of readiness to move abroad. If you're interested in that, you can hit the quiz down below. And again, I just want to encourage people to make 2026 a year where you really take really powerful steps towards your goals. If you know that you want to have a more humane experience and life with more freedom, more sovereignty, you may want to consider getting out of the U.S., because things are only going to get tighter and more difficult going forward. And that's a fact, with the way the administration, the prez and his admin are running things, the plans they have with the National Security Agency, the fact that they aren't even focused domestically and don't give a F what Americans is going through. It just doesn't look like things are going to improve anytime soon. So if you are looking to, make moves or find, another way to do things or another place, then I think, that you should definitely stay tuned, subscribe, like, stay tuned, make sure that, you check out my links. We've got the the readiness quiz, and also, our consultation links below, so you can get a little bit of a starting foundation and a framework to work from for how to approach this. Because this is, every country is different. Every, kind of need is different. So every family has their own kind of experience they want to have when they're abroad, and to be able to tap into that and be handheld while you make your plans, I think is really helpful for a lot of people. Okay, and the coaching and just really having someone to guide you through, someone who has a lot of experience. It's just, it's priceless in a way, because you remember you were talking about making moves that you would like to be able to do it, maybe going into the future for the long haul. Because like I said, like the likelihood that the U.S., and it's already high pressure right now and very oppressive for, your average individual, I just don't think it's going to be getting any better anytime soon. And so, it's important to have that plan be in place and ready for execution as soon as possible. So I just say make 2026 the year that you really take things serious, okay? And don't just sit there sitting on your hands just waiting and, waiting for the next shoe to drop. Like, we are literally, I'm watching. I don't tune out. I stay watching and tuned into what's going on where I'm from, because it is important to me, and I still have loved ones in the U.S. and people that I care for that I would like. I mean, for my family for sure isn't going anywhere, but, I have a lot of family that lives abroad too. So we're kind of a mixed group. Like, I have family in Panama, I have family in Czechoslovakia, I have cousins. A lot of my cousins are like up on stuff. A lot of my cousins are wealthy. They've been out living internationally. So, but for those who want to, get some guidance on it, yep, I think this is a good place for you to be. I have two children. They're grown. One of them's grown. She's 20, almost 21. The other one is 14, and I've been through all of the things, from traveling with small children to traveling with school-age children to traveling with young adults, and the experience and planning that needs to happen, so that everybody can be good, so that everybody can feel satisfied, and so that you can do the move for the long haul. You know what I mean? For the long haul. And not have to be, catapulted back to the U.S., because it's not easy to transition back in there either. For me, I don't even bother trying to do it. I would only go to the U.S. to stay when I was helping caretake my grandparents before they died. But mostly for the last years and years, I have been based in the U.S. Virgin Islands, because it's just been much easier, and I have, wonderful relationships there and people that truly love me like family. And so I have always been able to do that movement better than trying to go back to the States. But yeah, so it's not easy to go back and forth. So you want to go ahead and make a strong move. Okay. If y'all have any questions, go ahead and ask me down below. Okay, there you are. Oh, sorry. Oh, anyway, we don't care anything about what you have to say, troll. Good morning, sis. Have a great day. We have options, and looks like some people are big mad. Oh, girl, they stay on me on this channel. I do not care. Yep, nope. I don't got no whole lot of viewers on these videos, but it doesn't really matter, because I'm gonna continue to put it out there for those who need to hear it or do come through the videos and come through and check out the channel. But yeah, there are some weird troll demons that come around my channel. Which is interesting, because, it's like nobody really cares what they have to say. Misery loves company. You're not going to get me with the misery loves company thing, trying to drag me into your internal hell. We don't care about you, because I'm out here living beautifully and have all kinds of wonderful friends that are Americans and from different parts of the world, and everybody's living well. And I know it hurts to know that you're stuck and oppressed in, a hellhole. But yeah, I give thanks, for the ability, for being able to be free to a degree. Nobody's completely free. I'm definitely working towards my own complete sovereignty. But, to be out there just free and living life is such a blessing, especially as a woman, a maturing woman, and going through all of the changes that we go through. So it's a blessing. I hope you're still on, Pamela. Sorry, darling. I have my damn comments scrolled the wrong direction, couldn't see that you had written. But yes. Anyway, if you have any questions, if anyone's on here, just go ahead and hit me up. If not, I'm going to jump off. No, no problem.
Sorry.
I'm about to go up in my wonderful grocery store, all organics grocery store, and get some beautiful food. It's such a blessing to be able to buy food that's actually, you know, organic and isn't GMO'd, and it's just a blessing. But anyway, all right, Pamela, looks like you left, girl, so I'm gonna get ready to pull off. Oh yeah. Hillary, you big mad, huh? You stuck like Chuck out there. I know. It's so sad. And honey, we don't have no EBT here. And yeah, you don't move across the globe if you need EBT. That's you. Don't project, okay? Do not project. But yeah. Anyone else on here before I jump off? All right. Okay. Peace and love, y'all. Have a wonderful day.